I'm Shannon Martin. Troubling new data tonight shows a steep increase in the number of deaths among people experiencing homelessness.
Lack of access to appropriate harm reduction really means that people die.
Calls grow for more government action to address a number of issues in the shelter system. Plus,
while they're not necessarily being admitted, we are seeing a lot of kids coming in with fevers, cough, croup, sore throats.
A rise in COVID-related hospitalizations, why some want to see stricter measures again. And
my first reaction is, you kind of see it in the episode, is I was like, oh my God, I made enough money to clear my student loan if I want to.
You'll meet the young Canadian who is now a 4-time Jeopardy winner.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Thanks for joining us. We'll get to those stories in a moment, but let's start in Windsor, where the search is underway for a gunman after 5 people were shot early this morning. Chris Ensing is there, and he has a key piece of video from police.
Police officers were already on their way to this bowling alley in Forest Glade after reports of a fight inside spilling out into the parking lot. They now say that a gunman opened up fire, shooting 5 people in a crowd of 20 to 25, and that person is still on the loose. These pictures posted on social media show the police response. They say that a suspect is still on the loose and is armed and dangerous. They've released this video of the suspected vehicle driving away from the scene of the crime, saying that they're asking anybody with any information or videos between 12:30 in the morning and 1:30 in the morning to send them to their major crimes unit. At this point, we do know that the 5 people who were struck were 5 adult men, and that they have been treated for non-life-threatening injuries at hospital. Police say that one of those people was a bystander that was leaving the bowling alley. They are calling this a targeted incident that stemmed from a fight inside of the bowling alley that escalated when it went outside. The bowling alley is open today. An employee telling me that no employees were involved in the incident, and the police have released this crime scene but are asking for anybody with any details to contact them. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Meantime, police continue looking for a suspect after a shooting in Niagara Falls left a teenage boy dead and 2 other teens seriously injured. It happened Friday morning at the Great Canadian Midway, a popular tour spot on Clifton Hill. The Strip has now reopened, but the Midway remains closed for the weekend. Yesterday, officers said a blue Ford F-150 4-door pickup truck was seen speeding away. The truck had visible damage and no front license plate. Police believe people witnessed the violence, and some may have even filmed it on their phones. Grim new data to share with you tonight. The City of Toronto says more than 200 people experiencing homelessness died last year. That is more than double since 2017. Talia Ricci takes a closer look at those numbers, and she has a reaction.
Homelessness in Canada is a death sentence, really.
As someone who's staying in a shelter hotel, Gru says it's difficult to find the words to describe how seeing these numbers makes him feel.
They're not surprising numbers when you're in the situation.
According to Toronto Public Health, 216 people experiencing homelessness died last year, 72 more than the year before. The data also shows that more than half of the deaths were due to drug toxicity. Advocates say the numbers are likely higher than what's being reported.
The lack of access to overdose prevention sites and lack of access to appropriate harm reduction really means that people die. And as the city does things like criminalizes people in encampments, people get pushed further and further away from their support systems.
There have been countless people riding the subways and streetcars just to remain warm. Hundreds and hundreds of people who are scattered all over with no shelter.
The city says it's taking extensive action to help address overdoses in the shelter system, including implementing additional supervised consumption sites and embedding harm reduction workers in its shelters. The city also says it uses this data to make improvements and identify resource needs and gaps. It's calling on the province and the federal government for more support. GRU says for people who have been homeless during the pandemic, the effects will be long-lasting.
When you're taking people who do have drug use issues and throwing them into that sense of isolation, and then you add on the opioid poisoning crisis that's happening across this country, it's a recipe for disaster.
Those who knew the people behind the numbers want the public to know this.
These were wonderful people. They loved and were loved. They were people who were vibrant and generous and who we miss dearly and who didn't need to die.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Meantime, it is the first weekend since top doctors recommended a fourth dose of the COVID vaccine for more people. But with hospitalizations up, some experts want to see a stronger push towards other measures first. Lorenda Redekop explains.
At this Toronto pharmacy, there's a vaccination clinic, but no rush to get a shot, like when the first 3 doses expanded. In Ontario, everyone 60 plus can now go for dose 4.
There is vaccine fatigue. There is, why do I have to get vaccinated a 4th time? I don't need to show it a vaccine passport anymore. I don't have to wear a mask where I have to go. What's my incentive? And it's hard as a pharmacist to explain to people that already were hard to get them to 1 and 2, never mind 3 and 4.
In BC, vaccine passports just ended yesterday. The chief medical officer saying they were no longer necessary. Meanwhile, in Ontario, new wastewater sampling shows that province is likely at the same peak it hit a few months ago. Hospitalizations are climbing, but they're far from the height of the last wave. This emergency room doctor says she's seeing people of all ages affected by COVID.
While they're not necessarily being admitted, we are seeing a lot of kids coming in with fevers, cough, croup, sore throats.
She'd like the government to do more to encourage third doses. Across Canada, less than 60% of adults have 3 shots.
While there are still some elderly people or people who have medical comorbidities who are coming to the hospital with 3 doses, far fewer. Like it is a small amount compared to those who are under vaccinated with either none, 1 or 2.
She'd like to see a stricter masking mandate again to include pharmacies, grocery stores and schools, and possibly large events. Some headed to the Blue Jays game or taking their own precautions.
The cases are rising again, and I work with the vulnerable, and my kids go to a school where, we're all wearing masks anyway, so we might as well just keep it up.
Feel healthy. I mean, everyone has smiles on their faces, no masks. I'm glad we're moving in this direction for sure.
We have our masks, we get concerned, we'll throw them on.
Today, one Ottawa school trustee tweeted that he wants to make them mandatory again in that school board, given the rise in sick calls. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau joining in a global social media campaign today, all in support of Ukraine's refugees.
My friends, as a humanitarian crisis deepens and needs continue to grow, our collective response must keep pace.
The event was called Stand Up for Ukraine and was live streamed from Poland, the country that's welcomed the most refugees so far. European Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen was also on hand. An estimated 11.5 million Ukrainians have fled their homes to safer parts of the country and beyond. Well, meantime, a warning tonight from Ukraine's president to his people: brace for more heavy fighting. President Zelensky also appealing to the world for even tougher sanctions against Russia in an effort to end the war. Katie Simpson has that part of the story.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has quietly traveled to the capital, Kiev, for an in-person meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. It is important because it symbolizes 2 significant factors. One, that it is safe enough for another world leader to travel to Kiev, to the capital, after intense attacks by Russian forces. And 2, it's a show of support to the world that Western leaders are standing beside Ukraine. Now, President Zelensky has a direct message for Boris Johnson and other world leaders that Ukraine needs to see more sanctions placed on Russia to really tighten its grip, tighten those finances so that Vladimir Putin can no longer fund this war, especially in light of what happened yesterday at a train station where missiles landed, killing at least 50 people, a train station that was packed full of civilians trying to leave Ukraine's east. Now, there is an urgent plea from local officials in the south and the east for citizens to get out if they can while they still can. Russia is intensifying its attacks on those parts of the country because it is regrouping. It's pulled its troops out of the north. They are no longer at the moment trying to capture the capital, instead trying to make gains in the south and the east. And because of that, residents are being urged to leave. And we are starting to see more residents flee those areas. Another 6,500 people or so were able to get out of Mariupol. And that, of course, has been one of the hardest hit areas in this entire country. And there are great concerns that what is going on there will again be more examples of Russian war crimes. And that is what President Zelensky is saying today, saying that the attack that took place at the train station yesterday, that in fact, he says, is a war crime, a deliberate attack on civilians, which he says Russia has been trying to target as it continues on with this campaign. Now, Russia has denied responsibility for that attack, and we understand that Russian forces are trying to regroup and re-strategize. Russia is trying to recruit some 60,000 additional soldiers, a combination of reservists and volunteers, to try and replenish their troops on the front line after already suffering significant losses. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Lviv.
And it is going to be Jeremy Cochler from London, Ontario. Jeremy Cochler will take the Under Armour Spring Runoff.
More than 3,000 runners laced up for the Under Armour Spring Runoff at High Park this morning in Toronto. It was the first time the event has happened since 2019. Runners were excited to return to in-person racing after 2 years of COVID cancellations.
Great to be back racing. It feels like Christmas morning, obviously. It's very good to be back. Good to see everyone's faces, out running the community. This race is back on. So.
The race featured some of Canada's top elite runners. 2021 Canadian 10K champion Leslie Sexton took the top spot in the women's race. Up-and-comer Jeremy Kugler finished first for the men. This was the second big in-person running event after the St. Patrick's Day race in downtown Toronto a few weekends ago. I mean, not too bad running weather, although like at one point it was hailing and raining and a little of everything.
Yeah, April decided to show you what all of the possible weather days could have been over the last couple years for your running races. The hail in the West End, Shannon, lasted for a solid 20-25 minutes for some of you. It was the kind of day where you really needed to have eyes to the sky while you were pounding the pavement or whatever you were doing outside. Bit below seasonal. It's all part of this upper trough pattern that we've been dealing with for the past couple days, and that we'll have sticking around for the next 24, 36, even 48 hours. Doesn't take much when you have this kind of upper energy aloft to have a little extra convergence and get that hail and get those showers like we've had. Those pesky showers just finally exiting the East End. We still could have some snow showers as well up into cottage country and along the Georgian and the Huron shores. But for the rest of us, it's a cloudy overnight period. It will feel like -4 if you're leaving the Leafs game this evening. It'll feel like -2 or -3 if you're heading out for a dog walk early in the morning. Much cooler up the 400. Any of the warmth over the next couple days will be in the southwestern portion of the province. You'll be much cooler along any of the lake shores. We are still dealing with the cooler lake waters and that pesky east wind. At least, though, you will have some sunshine as you're heading to the Jays game tomorrow afternoon, even though it'll feel like 5. Now, coming up in the long range, I will tell you about some of the warmth that is definitely in the cards for us in the long range. Shannon.
Okay, thanks, Sophia. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Welcome back. Today marks the 105th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
And this battle was a defining moment for our country and in the First World War itself.
Defense Minister Anita Anand speaking earlier at the National War Memorial in Ottawa. The battle began on this day in 1917 in France during the First World War. Canadian soldiers succeeded where all others failed in taking Vimy Ridge from the Germans, but it took a terrible toll. More than 10,000 Canadian soldiers were killed. Protesters in Toronto joining in demonstrations that organizers say took place across the country. The group was outside Minister Marco Mendocino's office in North York, calling on the government to help 5 families facing deportation.
100 CBC officers are taking the action that does not represent the government, and the asylum seekers are under threat of having to be deported back to Egypt, where they face the military dictatorship over there.
It was organized by the Egyptian-Canadian Coalition for Democracy. They say the Canada Border Service Agency is demonstrating Islamophobia in the cases of 5 Egyptian families in Vancouver. In a statement to CBC Toronto, the CBSA said it is bound by its obligations under the Privacy Act and does not provide information or comment on specific cases. But it goes on to say our agency is committed to ensuring that all clients are treated equally, regardless of race, gender, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, age, or mental or physical ability. Also in Toronto today, a protest against the government of Sri Lanka.
Everybody's saying in Canada, worldwide, in Sri Lanka, they're all saying get out from the power. But he's very greedy for power, and he destroyed the country. He must get out.
A large group gathering in Scarborough to protest that country's president. He's been accused of mismanaging the economy. Sri Lanka is facing its worst economic crisis in decades. There's severe inflation, daily blackouts, and a shortage of essential items. That includes food, fuel, and medicine. Well, it is time for a quick break here. We'll be back with you in 2 minutes. After 2 long years, Summerlicious is coming back to Toronto, all about celebrating the city's food scene. As Dale Manukduk shows us, there are some changes this year, and that's welcome news for restaurant owners.
Italian comfort food spot 7 Numbers says things are heating up. Sales haven't climbed back to pre-pandemic levels yet, but it's getting closer.
Every single week is a small percentage better than the last. They're small percentages, but clearly climbing.
The return of Summerlicious is more welcome news as the industry tries to recover. The program has served nearly 8 million meals since 2003 and generated over $350 million for the local restaurant industry. At 7 Numbers, it usually boosts business 25 to 30%.
It brings in tons of new clients, and then obviously from there you grow some regulars out of it. And it's an influx at the end of the summer when it's traditionally fairly quiet. Vacation, school, back to school, cottages, so to bring it in then is fantastic.
This year will be running from April 12th to the 18th, and the city is making it easier for restaurants to sign up by cutting unnecessary red tape.
They don't have time for a lot of paperwork that involves City Hall, and quite frankly, we don't have time as we try to move the city towards recovery for a lot of paperwork either.
The city is also making it free for restaurants to participate. It will save this restaurant, which has 2 locations, roughly $3,000.
They've come through sort of on every front, grants all along the way, the Cafe TO program. This year the patio fees were waived, and now having Summerlicious fees waived yet doing the program is just putting a little more in our pockets.
The program also gives patrons a chance to try a variety of restaurants without breaking the bank. Andrew Dobson, who runs a food and travel site, says it's a great opportunity to get value out of the dining experience.
Like the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons, the St. Regis Hotel, their fine dining restaurants, which typically have a very high price point, become really affordable to people.
It's also a way to support local spots that have weathered the pandemic.
If you live in a neighborhood where you find a restaurant that's in there that you've never been to before, it's a great excuse to support local businesses in your community as well.
Applications for the program open next week. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Sophia's back. That's got me thinking about 2 things, supper and patio weather.
I'm thinking about my orders already. Yeah, from Summerlicious to how about the boys of summer who are playing under decidedly March-like temperatures out this weekend. Feeling like -5 for the game tomorrow, feeling like -4 if you're heading out to the Leafs game in a few minutes. There will be, though, some warmth in the long-range forecast. I'm talking about 15 plus and plenty of sunshine. However, for the next few days, we will most certainly be after The whim of really cool lake waters and a raw east wind, it will drop our temperatures substantially anywhere near the lakeshore. So feeling like 6, bit below seasonal for your Sunday. We have been warm though on this date in the past, and we will get a taste of it in the coming days as this ridge builds in and sets up shop above us. Tuesday will be the day to look forward to right across the GTA. Let's take it day by day now. Sunday, seasonal, 9, a couple degrees below seasonal actually, feeling like 6, raw northwest wind. Monday, a story of building warmth and late day showers, especially for those of you in the southwestern end of the province. It'll be an overnight story of showers. You'll wake up Tuesday morning, the rain will have cleared, and you'll have this balmy warmth and beautiful sunshine to look forward to. 17, 18 degrees, even a little cooler for those of you near any of the lake shores, and some scattered showers and warmth inland for Wednesday. And then Thursday, who's counting? But it's the 4th consecutive Thursday with rain and double-digit temperatures. I'll take the warmth though. Still
Tuesday.
maybe have the winter jacket around.
Oh, okay, but we'll take the sunshine. Thanks so much, Sophia.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Well, Jeopardy's reigning 4-day champ topped $100,000 in winnings, and this is pretty cool. Matea Roach is representing Canada on the game show, and she lives in Toronto. Take a look at last night's final Jeopardy.
Matea Roach, did you write down Oliver Twist? Yes, you did. And how much are we going to add to your score? $2,000, giving you $24,200. Congratulations. You remain our Jeopardy champion with a 4-day total of $104,600. You are a 6-figure champion.
The smile says it all. Roach tells us that was actually filmed back in January, and she applied in the fall of 2020 while isolating at her parents' place in Nova Scotia.
I only actually applied for the show once. I did the online test one time. It was fall of 2020, and I was stuck at my parents' house in Nova Scotia. So I was really bored. And the other thing that happened around that time is it was around when Alex Trebek passed away. And so I was just thinking about the show a lot, and I realized, you know what, there's literally nothing to lose. My first reaction is, I mean, you kind of see it in the episode, is I was like, oh my God, I made enough money to clear my student loan if I want to, which was an amazing realization. My second thought after that was, oh my God, I have to do this again. This television program has in some small way enhanced people's enjoyment of their day-to-day life. Like, that means a lot to me because people really need that right now, I think.
Roach studied at the University of Toronto. Now she's trying to get into law school. On Monday, we'll find out if she adds to her 6-figure winning. So we wish her all the best on the show and at getting into law school too. That's our show for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you have a great night, and we'll see you again soon.